mainly this semester is when we've really put all of my research together, but it has been over the past 2 years now that I've conducted this research. So it's been co-conducted with Trisha, who I think everyone now has been said hi to by Trisha. So that's Trisha, who I've co-conducted my research with. And then it's through the LEAP program, which is through the TLC Learning Center. And it exemplifies the motto of students helping students. So a little bit about me and just who I am. I'm originally from Woodstock, Illinois. That's where I grew up my whole life. I am this semester, I am a senior at UWSP, majoring in social work and sociology with a minor in criminal justice and a certificate of mentoring. And I'm actually graduating in May 2021. So like close to a week now. So I'm super excited for that. And then I'm planning to continue my education to UW Superior for a master's in school counseling and counseling. So I'll get my licensure in social work this summer, and then I will continue on from there. And then I started volunteering for Big Brothers Big Sisters in November of 2018 as a big in the Stevens Point office. And then through course of life events, which I'll explain later, I ended up getting a role here at Big Brothers Big Sisters in the Wausau office. And I started in March 2021. And I'm a match support specialist here, which I'm super excited for, and I love it so far. And then on campus, I've been a LEAP mentor and worked for the Center for Prevention as a peer educator for the past 2 years. So then kind of just going over like what LEAP is for those of you that don't know, it is the Learning Enrichment and Achievement Program, and it targets students of diverse backgrounds such as first-generation college students, low-income families, and LGBTQ plus identifying members. So it is a near peer mentoring program, which starts with like a summer bridge. So this past summer, I got to take on a bigger role than I did the previous summer of like reaching out to the mentees over social media and kind of just having them join like our Facebook page to get to know each other, get to know the mentors. And then we do a transition to college, which pre-COVID, we got to do a full week, and we went to like Tree Haven and did all sorts of bonding experiences. And that was also when Laura, who was on this call too, was a part of the LEAP program, and she was there for all of that. And that I personally found that very valuable to create those connections and relationships that I personally think are important to have a strong mentoring relationship. But this past year, due to COVID and shutdowns and everything just looking a little different, as we're all aware of, we only had a few days for transition. So instead, we did some virtual activities and a few in-person activities that we social distance. And I'm very happy that we still got to have those few like in person to meet our mentees and create some bonds before the school year starts. And they're just expected to pretty much hang out with us once a week. So when you're a mentee in the program, you do take a year's worth of classes. So you take a fall and spring semester course, which last year Laura taught those classes, and this year it is Jake Wozniak teaching the classes. And then as a mentor, we take 4 semesters worth of classes, which is 2 years as a whole. So we start out with just learning about mentoring, and then we go into creating our literature review. And then from there, we change our literature review into like finding our research question and really diving deep into our research that we each get a pick that relates somehow to mentoring. So then as a mentor, though, we obviously not just do our classes, we also are mentoring. So we have weekly scheduled meetings in the fall and spring with our mentees. And then we do logs and we record all of it. So that's also good skills for us as mentors, just to gain like a documentation. And then overall, so the LEAP program began in 2017, and there's been 4 cohorts of the program so far. So I joined in the 3rd year of the cohorts going on. And then next year, the program is joining with Diversity in College Access to be called Lead and Lead Plus, which I personally, from what I've learned about this, it seems very interesting to hear more on how that goes for them. Findings have shown retention and increased student performance with both mentors and the mentees. And we've also found post-graduation increase in graduate schools and participant acceptance and employment for the mentees and the mentors. So kind of what led me to LEAP was my freshman year experience. I really wasn't the greatest student, which now looking back at that, I can use those experiences I had as a mentor and kind of being like, well, I went through this and this is how I learned, or this is what I probably should have done to have a better experience. So I would have liked to have a mentor just kind of help with like academics, since I did end up not passing a class that was definitely my own fault, but it would have been nice to have someone there to kind of guide me and saying like, what if we did this? Or maybe we should take these steps instead when I couldn't solve my problem myself. And then I would have liked to gain the friendships that the mentees do get from each other. Becoming more involved on campus would have been really impactful in my life, I think, just to make those friendships again. And then having just an extra support system away from home, because we do have our teachers, but it's not the same as having someone that's there every week checking in on you, just making sure you're kind of like there and making good choices and just finding friends. So then also what led me to LEAP was that I was at the point in time of me potentially applying to be a mentor. I was mentoring through Big Brothers Big Sisters in Stevens Point, and I really was loving the experience I was having. So I was looking for more ways to become a mentor and growing my skills, because I found a passion in mentoring. So it kind of all jumped out at me at the right point in time. And then my two close friends at that point in time, Sierra and Eliza, were in the program as mentees their freshman year. And I was friends with them then sophomore years, when we really became good friends. And they talked about all the great memories they had and all sorts of experiences and how much it benefited them. And I got to watch them sophomore year kind of mentor their mentees and see how that also impacted not only their mentees, but their life, and just kind of like helped, like, oh, people are watching me, like I should get my stuff done on time, and just those types of experiences. So they kind of encouraged me to apply. And then I talked to my roommate about it a ton too. And she was like, you'll be great at it. And everyone just kind of pushed me in the direction. And so when I applied, I was still a little unsure, but overall, I'm really happy I took like my leap of faith, leap, and ended up applying to become a LEAP mentor. So then from there, I completed my classes. I mentored for a year, and then starting with Trisha, we created my research question of how does mentoring affect the educational outcomes of at-risk youth from the mentor's perspective. So then kind of what led me to this topic is obviously my big experience that I have kind of had through being a LEAP mentor, just in loving mentoring in general at LEAP. And because we do service the at-risk college students, not youth, which my topic is about youth because I have a passion with working with youth. But so just working with like at-risk students in general, and then also being a Big Brothers Big Sisters mentor. And then my major definitely impacted why I picked this research topic, just because as I stated before, with sociology and social work, we talk a lot about like at-risk youth and at-risk families and how we can support them and like help them become involved in the community and create those lasting connections. So I found that looking into this research topic would be a good way for me to kind of expand my skills I have gained and what I've learned so far, but also imply it in what I'm researching and how I'm going to conduct my research. So that's helped me gain experience and also working in my community. And then just my overall interest and passions. So I've always liked working with kids, I guess. I've worked summer camp at a zoo in my hometown for 2 years. I've done Great Escape childcare, which is in Stevens Point, through the YMCA for the past 3 years while I was in college. And that's just kind of where I learned that I do love working with youth, especially those at-risk populations, because they are so vulnerable that they'll tell you anything if you ask. And sometimes it's what'd you eat for dinner? And they'll tell you what they ate for dinner, and then dessert. And then they'll say, my dog ate this and my turtle ate this. And it's just, so it's kind of, I like just having those relationships that are so open, but yet so vulnerable at the same time, because they do tell you a lot. And sometimes they don't realize they're telling you more than they are. So then on the next slide, just because my research is so much focused on Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring, I'm just going to explain a little bit about the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And then also, just because I work here now, I know more about it too, which that was really interesting too. And I got to pair in my job and my big research project I've been working on for 2 years all together. So their mission statement is to create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and the promise of youth. While the vision statement is short but sweet and to the point, it's all youth achieve their full potential. So then this picture that I've attached on this slide is actually me and my previous little sister, who our match ended because she was graduating high school and I was graduating college, and she was just aging out of the program. But to this day, we still text weekly. We have FaceTimes, and we've gone and gotten coffee a few times. So I'm so grateful, because like of my own experiences, I can say that like these friendships do last a lifetime, because I don't foresee myself not being friends with her and not going to go visit her in college and all sorts of fun stuff, because she has been accepted into college. So that's super exciting for her. So Big Brothers Big Sisters was founded in New York City in 1904 and transitioned to being titled as Big Brothers Big Sisters in 1977. And then it went to an international program in 1998. So then The youth that participate in this program can be from the age 6 to 18, but it does depend on which agency you're working with and their guidelines. For example, the agency I work for, we serve youth at a different age range than that. So overall, Big Brothers Big Sisters is a one-to-one mentoring program that is designed to create friendships that last a lifetime. So then the youth are referred to the program by parents, guidance counselors, social workers, or a teacher. And the youth have to want to be in the program to participate. So it's not like a court mandated program where they can't be mandated to be a part of the program. The mentors are all volunteer based. So through my own experience of college, we've had many like recruitments come to campus and talk to us in classes and like, this is what Big Brothers Big Sisters is, like you should become involved. But also we do a lot of recruitment through like businesses, our social media pages, and just word of mouth from I talk to my big experiences to like my friends for saying that maybe they'll want to become a big. And then we also have a program that I personally think is very cool. It's Bigs with Badges, where we work with police officers as mentors, just because I think that they are very influential in our community and they do help play a significant role in a kid's life. So once a big or little enrolls in the program, they do go through a short interview process, but it's short, but kind of not short at the same time. For them, it's a short interview process. For like the workers, we do have a lot of more background work we do for it. So they have background checks, reference checks, they do interviews, and bigs and littles are matched based on a best fit, not the first to enroll. So we do look to match them with the best match that they could have, not just, oh, you enrolled first and you enrolled first, so you're matched together. And the mentors are asked to be a supportive adult in their life. So the training for the mentor includes going over the mission and vision statements, requirements of a mentor, rules and policies. And we also give a handout of activities and also a handout that can be used to help the mentors bring education into your activities we're doing together. And then overall, the match expectations are, we hope that the matches last at least a year. And then they do have to talk with their match support specialist. At first, it's a 2-week check, and then it turns into monthly, and then it turns into every 3 months. And then we do ask that the bigs and littles meet once per week or once every other week. So then back to my research project. So I started out by developing a literature review with Laura, who was the previous LEAP teacher that I had. And so from there, my original question was, how does mentoring affect juvenile delinquents? Because at that point in time, I was working in an inpatient center for juvenile delinquent men. It's called Hami Home in Wittenberg, Wisconsin. I was working there and I loved working there because I loved serving those youth. So that's what initially kind of led me to the question through my mentoring experience and then the population that I like to work with. But then after doing my literature review, I learned that there was a lot of gaps in the literature, but I wanted to be able to relate it to more of a personal place in my life and like how I can benefit my own community more, because I could do research on Hami Home, but is it actually going to benefit my community as a whole? I didn't really know. So then my question switched then to Big Brothers Big Sisters and education, because I was a mentor there too. And Trisha and I she helped guide me too in that direction, just figuring out how I can relate it to my life and something that is really meaningful to me. So from there, I developed my own research question, just based on my own experiences and what I personally found to be interesting. And then I did the city training. And then Trisha and I completed the IRB protocol and had it approved on campus. And then from there, we completed a survey where we did require consent from all of our participants. And then from that, we gathered the information. And then the participants all were Big Brothers Big Sisters that are mentors in the Stevens Point location. And then we analyzed the data, which is going to be used then eventually, that we're creating now a research paper that we're hoping to submit to a mentoring article, which I think would just be really cool to say in my future that like, due to my research, like I was published with Trisha, and just seeing how my research could then be used in the future to help maybe programs or other mentors, or I don't really know, but I personally find a lot of interest in this program. So I would read my paper, even though I have to. So for the first part of the survey that we completed, it was a Likert scale, which ranged from very positive to very negative, or they could have selected not applicable. So the question was, please think of the little whom you have worked with for the longest period of time. To what extent did you feel that BBBS mentoring, which stands for Big Brothers Big Sisters, has affected the following educational outcomes of that little? So we looked at academic performance, daily attendance rate, school persistence, creating social connections with peers, creating social connections with teachers and or school administration, maintaining these social connections, and involvement in extracurricular school activities, clubs, or sports. So we did remove any of the participants from the survey if they stated they were under the age of 18, because we asked it at first if they've been a mentor, and then if they're over the age of 18, just because we didn't ask for consent from any parents or anything. So obviously we can't use their information then. And then from getting this, we did look at the themes that emerged from our data, which I will explain later. So some of the findings that we have is we had 22 respondents that completed the survey and were over the age of 18. So then when we're looking at this is from the same question that I asked in the previous slide, but just averaging out the responses. So 1 would be a very positive effect, but a 5 would be a very negative effect. So as you can tell, all of them were either in between a very positive and positive effect, but there were a couple that, like the involvement with extracurricular school activities, clubs, and sports, that was a 2.4. So it is in between positive and neither positive nor negative effect. And then on this slide, we did compare the male versus female respondents. We had 6 male respondents and 16 female respondents, which is a big difference. So that's something that in future research would be interesting to look into. So female respondents did indicate stronger positive educational outcomes in their mentoring relationships. However, we do not know the gender of the mentee. So just confirming this is going over the gender of the mentor that answered the survey about their mentee. So the biggest difference within these is within the academic performance and maintaining social connections, which is a difference of 0.6. But the one that was the closest was creating social connections with teachers and or school administration staff, which is a 0.1 difference between the male and female respondents. So then like I showed before, those were the Likert scale questions. So these open-ended questions, the faces are over my screen. Oh my goodness. So these open-ended scale questions go into asking you to describe any changes you've seen regarding the educational outcomes during your time with your little. The next one is, have you ever worked on homework or studied with your little? Describe the experience. Does your little ever ask you for advice or assistance with educationally related topics? Is there anything educationally related that you struggle with or feel ill-equipped to help your little with? And then the last one, which was the only optional question, was just asking if you have any other additional information that you would like to share with us. So all of these questions were required except for the last question, which I stated. And if they didn't have an answer, they could put NA. So then kind of going over the findings that Trisha and I found, and we spent a lot of time like analyzing these together and picking out themes. So as I discussed before, the difference in the women versus men, which we do think could be a part of, there are more women volunteers in a lot of these mentoring relationships than there are male volunteers, but we think it would be interesting to look further into the differences and see if maybe women focus on different aspects of mentoring than males do. So then some of the primary themes that did emerge from our data was 8 times out of the 22, educational skill development and achievement in general came up, and 5 times out of the 22 respondents, social and emotional development did come up in the answers. So in some of the mentor statements, I will read some to you in my following slides, but some things that really stuck out to me of highlighting the development of academics was one of the mentors stated she has gotten better at reading out loud and in front of others. And another mentor commented on her mentee's change, stating that she was seeing more communication with friends and better grades, while another mentor stated, during the time of working with my little, she made tremendous school achievements. She received all A's. When we started working together, she was only receiving decent grades. So then this quote is from the section in our research of the open-ended questions that just asks if you have any additional information. And I found this quote to be probably one of my favorites from the whole survey, just because I can relate it to my personal mentoring experience. So one of the mentors responded saying, I'm so grateful to be a part of this program. I wish others could take more part in this because I do believe that it majorly benefits the little in many different aspects other than education, including mental health, friendships, communication skills, and accountability and trustworthiness. Although in the long run, when you think about this overall, it does affect school performance. So I can relate this to my own mentoring experience, just because when I first met with my little from Big Brothers Big Sisters, we worked a lot on communication skills in the community, such as like ordering coffee on your own and not having me ordering it for you. And also talking about like how to take care of our mental health and not working too much and putting in too much effort in other places and on yourself, which is something that I personally learned a lot about, kind of trying to preach it onto her too, of like, make sure we're taking care of ourselves. So it was really, I really liked seeing how she took what we talked about just when we were meeting and conversations and like applied it to her own life. And she did. She ended up getting straight A's in school the last 3 semesters and got accepted in the 4 colleges. She applied for all of them. She got accepted into all of them, and she ended up deciding to go to Madison starting next fall. So then some more findings that I found were impactful too. These were in the section of describe any changes you have seen regarding educational outcomes during the time with your little. One mentor stated, when we met our little, he had a truancy problem, but by the time we finished our 11 years with him, that had subsided and he had earned his high school diploma. He was proud to share his achievements with us. I say us because we are a couples match. The second one that I found to be very impactful stated, my little gets excited to tell me about what they've been learning in school or anything that has happened at school. She is much more excited about school now than at the beginning of our match. Some limitations that Trisha and I discussed in our many conversations we've had about this research that we found are that we did have a small sample size due to only sampling the Big Brothers Big Sisters mentors in the Stevens Point location, which then goes to we had a limited geographical area represented. So maybe mentors in California have different responses than mentors in smaller town Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So also due to COVID, many people may have not been checking their emails or been as active in their match, because as I've started my job in Big Brothers Big Sisters, I've learned that due to COVID, a lot of mentors haven't been meeting with their mentees as much, just because of shutdowns or safety concerns or tons of reasons that I think we all understand, just because we're all living in this pandemic too. So then it comes down to, were they answering these questions based on their current situation they're in with their mentee or their overall match with their mentee if they have been matched longer. This survey was sent out in a link via email, and they did only have a 2-week response time frame. So if they would have clicked on the email and then maybe said, oh, I'll look at it later, because I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes I'll click on it and say, I'll look at it later. They may have forgotten to answer in the time period we gave. We do think that there was a lack of gender and ethnic diversity represented, but also that could because we did take the survey from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, where, as we've learned, a lot of the mentors there don't have a lot of diversity. So I think it would be interesting in the future to do this survey in places where there might be more diversity, so you can have more of a diverse answer from the mentors. We also did not gather any information about their mentors personally, so we don't know the gender or the age of the mentee. Or we also we only had the impressions from mentors. We did not have any actual school GPAs, attendance records, or anything of that sort. And then one more limitation that we did find was, because the invite to the participants was sent out from a Big Brothers Big Sisters administrator in the Stevens Point office, that may have been seen as a hesitation or a reason that they don't want to answer, just because they might not have known who that administration is, rather than if it would have been a match support specialist where they do have more contact with. However, we did add in our own statement that was sent out with email stating why we were conducting this research and who Trisha and I both were. For future research, for ideas that we have had, which I'm sure there's many more ideas than what we came up with. So we think that it would be interesting if this study would be conducted during a time when there's not a pandemic, just to see if there is a difference in opinions or attitudes in non-pandemic conditions, or also while in-person learning is a primary mode, since a lot of kids are learning online still, that could also be affecting their education right now. This study was solely focused on the mentor's perspective. So we think it would be interesting if we had the little's perspective, although that comes with a further layer of consent and all that, that quite frankly, we just didn't have time for in the year that we had to complete this survey and do all of the research. But we also think one more reason would be that some mentors may feel that they need to make the relationship look better than they actually do. Although we don't know, that was an anonymous survey, there may be some people that felt the need to answer better about the relationships than the reality of the relationship, just because they don't want to admit to maybe they haven't really focused on education, or they haven't asked their mentee about how school is going. So then one more topic is, if there is a female focus towards education, as I described previously, we think it would be interesting to figure out maybe what the male focus is on, whether it's on sports or education that isn't in school. Maybe it's like learning about a community or learning about more family focused. We do think it would be interesting to see where male mentor relationships are seeming to be focused. So then looking at how LEAP has affected my life and UWSP experience, this is like summing it up in these 5 little statements was honestly not even justifiable to how much it has affected me. So for my skills, I've definitely developed a lot of transferable skills through conducting research, analyzing data, and just looking for emerging themes, because those are things that I personally have never done. I've done literature reviews, I've looked at other people's data, but it was really interesting to me to actually get to go out, conduct the research, look at the research, and talk it through with Trisha, just because it's an experience I've never had, which now I can use in my future when I maybe make another research project someday. So then it also encouraged me in my master's, because I originally was going to attend UW Green Bay to do social work, and I wanted to do child welfare. However, after taking a lot of hard conversations and thinking a lot and talking to a lot of people that I do respect in my life, I've decided that I'm going to attend UW Superior to get my master's in counseling and school counseling, because I can act as almost a mentor to them too, and have that support that I want to have in the student's life, specifically those who are at risk, because I have found that I do have a passion for that work in my life. I've made a ton of friendships. One in specific is a person that is maybe on this call, who used to be one of my mentees. And when I was her mentor, I would never let her call me her friend, because I was like, there's boundaries, that I don't want to know what you do on the weekend sometimes, and all sorts of other reasons. But so when we finally ended the school year and we completed our end of the year surveys and all of those, we finally are friends, and I now consider her to honestly be one of my closest friends. And all my other mentees too, I do still have regular contact with them. And I would say I'm friends with all of them to this day. So I do think that the mentoring relationships do create lifelong friendships, because I don't intend on these friendships ever kind of going away. But also it did help me create more friends that were mentors in the program. And just, for example, Trisha and Laura, who I do consider my friends, even though they're technically teachers, but I think they're my friends too. And I do look to them for support in my life. It also has impacted my employment, because I have been hired before graduation at Big Brothers Big Sisters in Wausau. And this pretty much happened because I was applying to be in a big couple relationship with my boyfriend. And one of the program directors asked me if I'm looking for a job. And I was like, oh yeah, eventually I planned on it. And then it ended up, I applied and I got the job. And I'm so thankful for the people I've met here in my position, and just how awesome they've been with working with me through being a full-time student still and almost working full-time. Not really, they want me to get more hours, but we won't tell them. And then I do love my job so much, and they've been so supportive. And then just kind of going back to, I'm continuing to mentor just because of my LEAP experience and of my research that I've done, which shows that mentoring does play a role in these kids' lives. So me and my boyfriend are now in a couples match together, and we've met with our little a couple of times now for 3 weeks, and we just can't wait to see where that takes us to. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do, Emily. So my question is, you mentioned working with at-risk youth. How could LEAP identify at-risk freshmen that are coming in? Maybe their first-time college student in their family or something like that. How could they identify at-risk kids to make sure they get paired up or join the program?
Yeah, so from what I do know, since I was never part of really the recruitment process, is that at the transition to college days and all sorts of activities like that, there was a LEAP table set up, and there is information given out to the students. So they identify themselves as wanting to be a part of the program. However, we do have some DC recruitment, Trisha, correct me if I'm wrong, that we do look to that from our students, because we do look for students with the diverse backgrounds. And a lot of times when you travel from farther, you do kind of have a harder transition, because you're away from home, you're in a new community, you're in a new culturally area. So all of those transitions, but yeah, I don't think that answered your question. Sorry, Dad.
Emily, just want to say nicely done. I found your presentation to be extremely informative. And as am I believe that you too believe in the value and the utility of mentoring as a student success intervention and resource, if you will. But when exactly did you know that mentoring could be transformative, not only on your but on your mentee's life? Was there any particular experience or situation or a particular mentee that you worked with, and when you said this thing actually works?
Yeah, I definitely remember an experience when I was sitting in Laura's office with her, kind of talking about my mentees at that point. And I had three mentees that were all very close, but yet all very different humans, like completely polar opposites, like totally different people. And I used to do group meetings with them. And I remember being in Laura's office once, just kind of talking about like how it's going, what I'm thinking. And I was like, they just want to hang out with me. Like, it's not like I'm forcing it. It's not like I'm doing it. They come to me, they tell me about their day. They're excited to see me. They'll hang out with me for 3 hours and do homework, not just the hour that I tell them they have to be there with me. So I think that like Laura just kind of being there and just kind of reassuring, like you're making an impact, and just me talking it through out loud instead of just in my head and like hearing myself say it is when I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm actually impacting them. They actually value what I say, or I say something and then they go do it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I didn't mean like literally do it sometimes, but they listen to everything I say, and they were all very great humans too. So I'm very thankful that I had them as my mentees.
Wonderful. Thanks, Emily.
If I'm allowed to ask a question, Elizabeth, I don't mean to entirely put you on the spot, but Elizabeth was Emily's mentee in her first year, and now Elizabeth has transitioned into being a mentor. She'll be a second-year mentor next year. Elizabeth, how did having Emily as your mentor affect your first year experience?
Emily had a huge impact on my life. To this day, she still does. I talk to her every day. And I'm like, seriously, if I didn't have Emily in life, I don't know how I would have made it through my first year of college. She's helped me through a lot of obstacles that I had to get through. And then also, like, today we talk every day. She helps me through things now. Like, we say we're friends, but like there's some days where she's just my mentor. Like, she still helps me through the things I need help with. So having that person that I can still go to and always be there for me has really helped me through my college experience.
That was like the sweetest thing ever. Thank you, Elizabeth.
I could ask a relatively selfish question, Emily. You mentioned the Lead and Lead Plus program, and I think, Paul, you kind of asked a question about how do we identify these students to take full advantage of this program. Well, part of my job is to help promote the Lead and Lead Plus program and identify as many students who we can find that would get the most out of this type of experience. So if you could put yourself in the shoes of a high school student, or even put yourself in my position, what are the things that we can say to a soon-to-be college student in suggesting why they should join LEAP, or why they should look for peer mentors throughout their college experience? What are some of the things that will hopefully resonate in those students based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, just because when I think about it, if someone told me my freshman year that I was not going to do well and fail a class and miss being away from home, I wouldn't believe anyone. I'd be like, no, I'm going to be perfectly fine. Like, I would have told you no, but I don't know. I think that's a really good question. I think kind of just like talking about like college and being like, you're away from home for the first time. Like, you probably don't have a lot of high school friends coming with you, and just talking about like the hard but real truths that like we think about decorating our dorm rooms and like meeting new friends, and I can go do whatever I want to do because mom and dad don't ask me when I'm going to be home tonight. So just kind of, we don't think about like the reality of college, of there is school, like you are going to need that support. But also I think it is ultimately up to them, because if you put them in a program that they probably aren't entirely in love with, as we've seen before, me, Trisha, and Laura talking about it a lot, have seen kids not like their mentors because they just aren't thrilled with the program or just not have that same like outcome because they aren't entirely in love with it. So I guess that's a really good question. I feel like that'd be a good question to even ask the mentees like currently and be like, what drew you to want to join the LEAP program?
Thank you. And we might just do that. Trisha Lamers, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Beautiful presentation. Excellent job.
Chris, as a follow-up to your question, Emily knows this. This isn't really a question to you, but I work in a program in the middle school right now, and we're rolling it up to the high school here in Woodstock, Illinois. And it's a nationwide program. It might actually be an international program called AVID. And it's really picking those kids, and I don't know if it's in your area or not, but it's really picking those kids who are first to graduate or potentially will be first to graduate college or go to college even from their families. So the diversity in the program is high. And here in Woodstock, we have a very high Hispanic population. And a lot of our kids are Hispanic. They just have never heard about college. They come from Mexico. They're migrant workers. And so this AVID program, I just looked it up. It stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. It's really taking kids who are maybe mediocre in high school and bringing them up to the possibility and really dreaming about the possibility of going to college. And we are basically their mentors in this program. There's 3 of us in the classroom at a time, and we do all sorts of problem solving, question asking. So I think it would be interesting if you could find out if that program is something that is in Wisconsin, or I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's in different places in Wisconsin, and those kids would be perfect for the mentor program, the LEAP, just to transition them to high school or to college, I'm sorry, from high school. So
absolutely
rolls up in high school, but I'm sure it's all over Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Emily, great presentation, really great research. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on time as a mentee or mentor to make that connection. Do you know in any of your research or diving into other research, is there kind of like a best time frame to make a connection, and maybe what has been your experience as a mentor both on campus or as a big as to when that relationship takes it to the next level and can really be impactful?
Yeah. So I think what kind of sticks out in my mind was the first year I was a mentor and we had that week full of transition is we were in Tree Haven, which is part of the Stevens Point campus, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I think it's part of the Stevens Point campus. And we were there and we did an activity called True Colors. And it's kind of just where we had to like, Trisha, can you explain it? I don't even know how to explain it right now.
You mean True Colors, the one that Scott West did?
No, nope, the other one.
Identity?
Yes, that one. Yeah.
So we did aspects of identity, and then we did True Colors the next day, and I think those coupled really well with each other. So the aspects of identity allowed the students to be vulnerable in front of each other, and that vulnerability created deeper bonds and an ability to more quickly move into some of the work we needed to do in the fall, in talking about what are you worried about, and them not holding back because they trusted the people that they were working with. So that was really beneficial. I don't know if you wanted to expound on that, Emily. Did you want to talk any more about aspects of identity?
Yeah, I mean, I think just us being there together and like just not being able to talk during this activity, but yet seeing, even though you think you're watching other people's facial like expressions and everything, like at first I was like, oh my goodness, everyone's gonna be watching where I'm walking. But by the end of it, I think that we all just were kind of like in our own heads thinking and like realizing that we really are all in the same boat, but yet different boats, that we've all been through some sort of struggle. And I think that's just what it comes down to, is like realizing that whether you think someone's life is perfect or you think someone is come out of the gutter and still crawling, like that everyone has been through something. And I think that's really when we created those initial bonds, was having that time just to be with each other, then sit with each other afterwards, just to like, even if we weren't talking, but just be like, they knew that they had us there for them and that they were there for me even at that point, whether it's I was in my own little crying about something or just thinking about something else. But then I think having just that week of like good transition, getting to know them and having that time where like we were pretty much forced to hang out with each other. Granted, I was being paid to be there. So like I got to be there for my job, but like the mentees were pretty much told they had to hang out with us for this week. I do think that that really created stronger bonds, especially in this last year when we only had a couple of days and it was virtual. You could just tell those initial connections took longer to create because we didn't have those times to bond. But for being a big, I definitely think just showing up and being there and being consistent. And if I say I'm going to remember something, I'll remember it the week later, even if I have to write myself a reminder, like just having those like core commitments and connections.
Hi, Em. Maybe this was mentioned before, but I'm just thinking right now after learning all this stuff, and it was an excellent presentation in my mind, but what happens, is there a follow-up if there's not a good match? What do you think could help, those kids that are dropping out or whatever, what could help them, find that better match? Any ideas?
I mean, we experienced that actually this past year where we did have a mentee that was matched with someone that they ended up, for whatever reason it was, we don't entirely know, that they didn't want to be matched with that mentor. And then they did get to switch mentors, which I think that at that point, like it comes down to I'm the mentor and like ultimately I want what's best for the mentees. So being open and saying like, okay, I'm not the best fit, but like who is? And Trisha did work through that awesomely. I don't know how she did it because I wouldn't have been able to do it as well as Trisha did, and like transitioned them over to someone else. But I also experienced 2 mentees that did end up dropping out halfway through the year this semester at winter break. And for me, that was hard because last year my like relationships with my mentees were awesome and they reached out to me and they accepted my help. But with 2 of my mentees this year, it just wasn't reciprocated, and everything I did in my best efforts just, I'm not gonna say wasn't enough because it's all that I could have given, but they just weren't in the right mindset. So I think that it comes down to being like, this isn't on me again, like this is for the mentees. And if they're not in the right mindset to be in school right now, or maybe not ever, like how can I better support them to transition back home and back to wherever they're going next? So I think it really just kind of comes down to what's best for the mentees. And as a mentor, you kind of just have to take a step back and be like, this isn't about me. It's about how can I support someone else?
Emily, where do you go to find a good mentor? How do we identify who's mentor worthy? And part of this kind of comes from my anecdotal understanding that big brothers and big sisters sometimes has a hard time finding male bigs. And I would imagine that sometimes, the LEAP program maybe identifies female mentors more readily than males. What kind of thoughts do you have in terms of overall, where do you find a great mentor, and potentially how can we scale that to hopefully find more male leaders?
Yeah, I definitely think that those who have been a part of a program, for example, like some of the mentees that were a part of the program previously that are now mentors, I do think that they make strong mentors just because they see both sides of it. But I also think in like my case of when you told me, like when Trisha and like my friends were telling me to be a mentor, I was like, haha, good joke. Like I can't teach anyone. I failed a class. I've done this and that, but kind of just showing people that like those are the experiences in your life that you can help others grow with. So finding them, I guess that's hard, but just, I think if someone takes that initial step, kind of just jump on it. Like if there's that would be cool, but what if, because that's where I was at. And just Trisha and Laura took a leap of faith on me. And I would like to say I was a good mentor, but I guess that's up for debate. So I think it's just kind of leaving it at the, like, you've been through stuff, but that actually can help someone else. Like, because they'll see you've had those experiences. So I guess the at-risk grown up kids, maybe in a way, or those who have been mentored or have been in the program, looking back, because even like with big brothers, big sisters, every once in a while, I'm still in training. So I guess I don't know as much as like Beth or Megan or Linda, but we did have a big ones, which I thought was really a little ones, which I thought was cool, say, I want to be a big. And that was just something that kind of stuck out to me of like those kids that have been mentored and they saw how it helped them ultimately are the people that are going to be mentoring our community someday.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, I'm going to take it as a no, but thank you guys all for coming. And if you do have any follow-up questions, I have attached my email, but if you're on campus, if you type in my name, it pops up with my email. So I guess you don't need to like actually write it down. But if you're ever interested in becoming a big, feel free to reach out to me or the Stevens Point office.
Good advertisement.
Or our office too. We want them up here too. Thank you. Just saying.
We're so proud of you, Emily. Good job.
Yeah.
I just had to say that. Every month. Thank you, everyone, for supporting Emily.
You weren't
I
here when
just
I was
want to
speaking.
say on behalf of Big Brothers Big Sisters, awesome job. And we are very, very happy to have you on staff because you're doing amazing work. And I think your research was phenomenal. Great job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great job, Emily.
Thanks for all your work with the students. They're lucky to have you as a mentor.
Thank you.
And Mom, you weren't here earlier when I was talking to Dad, but you did a great job raising Emily. She was awesome. So whatever you helped instill in her, she has shared that with her mentees, and she's making a big difference. And now she gets to make a big difference at Big Brothers Big Sisters. So
Can I ask a related but unrelated question, Emily? What about Superior? Because that's up north there.
Yeah.
Can you articulate your thought process behind Superior, that choice?
Yeah. So it is all virtual, which was something that stuck out to me. And I was able to work and continue to, because I do really like the position I'm in, and I wasn't ready to be like, oh, bye, sorry, thanks for 3 months, and then go do masters. So that really stuck out to me that it was online, and just hearing, because I did talk to a few other schools and talking to like some people in my life that really encouraged me that getting my master's would be the most beneficial to me, because I did for like a little bit really struggle with, do I want to go? Is it the right time to go? And Superior really just was good about like working with me. And like, if I expressed my concerns, they were very like, oh, here's how we can work around that. Like, this is how we want you to come work with us. And I think being the online portion was really a good push for me, because then I don't have to like schedule it into my schedule, which would be hard because at this job, we do have meetings all the time, and you never really know when you're going to get a call from a big or a little saying, hey. So yeah, that's why. And there's 7-week classes too. And I like that. So it's like short and sweet and to the point. So it's not like anything's dragged out, but yet I'll still get to learn a ton. So I guess that's why. I don't have like a really good answer.
That was a really good answer. I'm taking lots of mental notes that I'll be sharing with our faculty and staff on how to position their graduate programs. So thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
If anyone knows Emily, she researches stuff, she thinks about it and talks to lots of people, weighs her decision well, and talk. Yeah. And that's how that's perfect. And she has such great people to talk about with, and they're all on here today. So Chris, it wasn't an easy decision, but it was a good decision.
Yep.
You're one of the few people, Emily, anxious to start more online learning right now. That's kind of, we might need to get a quote from you for marketing purposes, just because everyone's fighting us on this virtual learning, and here you are signing up for more of it because of the flexibility. So we might need a soundbite from you in the future. So
yeah,
stay
if you ever need anything, let me know.
Oh, we will. Don't worry about it.
thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate the opportunity to share all the work that Emily's done and all her experiences and growth. And like she said, it seems like there are a lot of people on here who helped her get to where she is. So appreciate you being here for this. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Emily. Great job.
Bye, Laura.
Bye, Laura.
Trisha.
We love you.
Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. Bye, Oscar.
Bye.